Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guy who has been researching conspiracies on 4chan for years. He is very interesting and has very thought provoking ideas. He is co host of a hilarious podcast called Mystical American Patriot Society. Everybody, welcome Sumo to the show.
Hello, everyone. I like the clapping. I feel like I'm in a on The Price is Right.
Well, come on down.
Yeah, I know. It's also great to be recognized as a 4chan researcher first and foremost.
Yeah,
it's true. That's where I cut my teeth. That and like myhauntedlife.com.
Myhauntedlife.com, yeah.
Top tier universities.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, 4chan, even though it's crazy as could be, I don't go on 4chan. I was for a little bit there when QAnon was big, but I don't go on there, but it anymore. But that is where all the like information is being shared, and then it worked its way out to the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go on there much anymore. Of course, as they say, you're here forever. Yeah, everyone always comes back. Yeah, but because the most 4chan thing to do is think that it's dying all the time. It's not as good as it used to be, which is what I do. I like, don't go anymore.
How we think of life all the time. We're always like, oh, the good old days.
Yeah, it's something about the human psyche. It's just everything was better yesterday.
Yeah, that's how we were just talking about that. Mimi and I were discussing that earlier, how everyone always thinks that the past was better because it's a memory.
Yeah, it's a memory. I guess I guess pleasure and joy survive in memories better than pain does.
Yeah. I think we hide those memories.
Yeah, and also pain is just so immediate. Like once it's gone, you're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Like if you had a toothache and then it stops, you're like, woo, and then you don't really think about it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
You reminisce on happy things.
Yes. So you're like, I don't know exactly how much you want to reveal or anything, but you work in the medical field or physics?
Well, I have to some degree.
Okay.
To an indeterminate degree. I've done jobs wherein I do technical work in many different hospitals.
So I bring that up because you come from this conspiracy thing from a very different angle from the conspiracy theories that I come across on a regular basis, which is why your show attracted me to the point where I listen to so many different episodes, because you guys bring a different, you and Smokestack bring a different feel in how you handle things. And you have, I myself, I say very outlandish things. I have very big ideas sometimes. And when I listen to you guys talk, I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't just somebody who's trying to, read the information that they saw somewhere and talk about it. This is like all new ideas that you're trying to provoke people into thinking completely different than they always have.
Yeah, it's that comes from a place of well, it was a blessing curse. I tell people I went through a period of very intense depression for like 5 or 6 years, which was quite bad. But it was born out of like I had a deep intuition of a transcendent of God and things, right? And like love and meaning. But then the world as presented, like what you're taught in school and what the society tells you, there's no place for that. And people get around that mostly by ignoring it. But I am cursed to not have any ability to compartmentalize my life or thoughts. And so if something didn't gel, I had to sort of try to make it work. And that has led me over the years to radically different worldviews from a lot of people. I think it's fair to say that some of the ideas we bring up are completely novel sometimes. I hope they make sense nonetheless, or at least
sense
they're plausible.
To me. But
we call our show a worldview repair service. We've had a idea floating around. We do a little commercial where like we were foundation repair guys, but it was metaphysical foundation. Like, is your foundation cracked? because everyone's is in this society.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really view what we do as like blue collar work for the spirit.
yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
It's like, you got your foundations broken. These boards are rotting. We got to do something about it because everyone's metaphysical house is sliding off. It's just falling down, and people
Yeah.
mostly get around it by wallpapering over it, pretending it's not happening. But it
Right.
has big effects on society and like the world, and how people all the depression, the divorce rates, the wars, it's all there.
Yeah.
Because and I think that creates it creates a lot of problems for people. So one of these days we're gonna have a little commercial where we're just two guys in like rotor-rooter suits or whatever.
Dress up like Mario and Luigi.
Yeah, like Mario and Luigi. Yeah.
Well, I relate to the depression. I was very depressed. I was so depressed. I was a drug addict for over a decade. I went to state prison. I was burglarizing pharmacies. I was doing all the things wrong. And then like something broke in me and made me start to question reality, start to question like, what am I? Why am I here? What is
Right.
going on? And that led me into spirituality, that led me into conspiracies, and now I'm here and I feel like I'm some kind of conspiracy Jedi where I'm like, no, this is bullshit, like wow.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true. You
because
feel like
so
you
much.
are you sort of feel like because you just see how much is not so.
Right.
It's amazing how many things there are that aren't so.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
got called today for the first time I got called controlled opposition.
You get a
So I made
badge.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you get a badge if you're controlled opposition.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, me and my 57 subscribers on YouTube. I'm controlled opposition.
Your
Yeah, I always
six-pointed
wonder about
star.
like why people think like if the government was putting you up as controlled opposition, they could give you 1 million followers overnight.
Right.
Just a bunch of bot computers, and I'm sure they do. I think that's
Yeah.
what happened with Steven Crowder. Personally,
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that probably happens with once you hit a certain point, I think that you stop growing because
or
you
you
either
or you sell
join.
yourself off.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know what that point is because I haven't got propositioned, and I don't think I'd be
Yeah.
approached because I am way too open and honest. And I think that if I probably have some kind of intelligence agency checking in on me, I think we all do. But
Mhm.
I think that they would be like, yeah, avoid him because he'll just tell everybody what happened because that's what I do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure where the growth point is, like where you have to they come with an offer to sell your soul.
Yeah.
It's I think it's higher than people imagine, but there is an upper limit of people ready to wake up out of the matrix.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the market cap is here on this conspiracy coin
Yeah.
that we're all
Well,
minting.
the highest I made, I had about 4,000 followers on Twitter, but one of my followers said that they saw I had 10,000. I never saw it higher than 4,000. It was like right every time I would get close to like the next,
Yeah.
I think I got to like 3,900, and every day I would look, it would be like 10 followers stopped following me, and then like 20 more started, and it's like, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Uh,
definitely, yeah, you can't trust any of the numbers really.
yeah, it's all fake.
It is. All the numbers are almost all numbers are fake.
Yeah,
to
I
some
don't think.
degree.
Yeah, I don't think that anything on Twitter is real, like at all. Like I think there might be like
No.
7 people in America that are on Twitter.
Well, I never encounter anyone in the real life that uses Twitter.
Yeah,
Like
not
I'm the only
really.
one. We just could all be talking to ourselves and like bots.
Yeah, that's what I think it is because the way that when I started awakening, the interactions I had with people, like someone would on all social media, someone would be on Facebook telling me that uh the planes in the sky aren't leaving trails. That's not a real thing. And now I don't see anyone talking about that. It seems like whatever I'm into is what I see on social media. And then like sometimes I have people that will come up against what I'm talking about, but that rarely even happens. It's like more like whatever my mindset is what I typically see. And I don't know if that's because I'm part of the matrix that we're in. I have no idea what the possibilities of that means, but it seems that whatever I'm into is what I start to see.
Yeah, it's true. Well, there's a saying in the paranormal research is that when you start looking into the phenomena, it looks back at you.
Yeah, that's why I had to stop listening to podcasts about ghosts and all that,
Yeah,
and the jinn.
100% it happens. Like,
Yeah.
the whole meme of like a UFO stopping your car engine and shutting it off when it comes over you. You see that in
Right.
movie. That first appeared in fiction, right? But then after that appeared in fiction, people were like, yeah, and then I don't know if it really happened, but enough people have claimed that it happens that it gives you pause.
Right. Even
like,
Smokestack had a similar story to that.
Yeah. And it's like, I always wonder about that, like how are we giving life to memes or something? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there are these memes that happen and we collectively create them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting how it works. Is it like there's a machine in here that feeds the consciousness that's in here in order to make the consciousness bring to fruition what the machine wants it to?
Well, where's the machine in this question?
The machine is the place that we're in, I think.
Okay, the machine. I like the term the not nilk reality.
The what is it?
Not nilk. I don't know what that means. I think it means something like the servants of the nothing from the Never Ending Story. But it's a phrase I heard coined. I was like, yeah, the not nilk.
Okay, I never heard that before.
Nonsensical,
but yeah.
and it also is not. It's like not. It's like nonsense. The nonsense reality, the inversion, the upside down.
Yeah, because I think the Matrix is its own living thing that we're in. I don't know how to really say it, but it's basically like all of our computers and our electricity come from it rather than from the natural consciousness that we should be hosting. We decided to plug in. The way that I say it is that we're in a dome, that there's a land that's flat in the middle of this dome, but it's surrounded by us, and it's an atmosphere. It's a full sphere, and it's like it's alive, or maybe not alive isn't the best word for it, but it's aware. But it's also aware that it can't create, so that it uses us to create for it.
Interesting. Yeah, I did a show. We have the main show you talked about, and I have a second like subscriber show, the St. Nicholas Project on Gumroad. And I did a show actually just yesterday about maybe the purpose of psyops is not to fool people per se, but to convince enough people that something is or is inevitable that they'll believe it enough to make it true. So it's like a reality manipulation device.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Like if you get enough people to believe in white supremacy, then you sort of make white people supreme, which is the stated goal of that, because you've got all these black people and Mexicans running around going, they've taught them through this meme to be like, white people are always keeping us down. They're always holding us. They're never going to let us succeed. And then they act as if white people are always supreme. And then that becomes more true.
Yeah.
And so it's actually the total inversion of what the stated goal of it is.
Right. Like it is happening on a scale, but because people are believing it and making it true for themselves, then it makes it on a larger scale.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
they're
like an
putting them up
amplification
as an idol. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an amplification. It's like creating an idol that you worship and then give life to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange.
It is strange. This is a strange world that we live in completely. And, I invited you on here because I was listening to your episode your 2 episodes about the moon landing, and on all the fakery, when I had my awakening, I never really looked into the moon landing. I was just like, oh yeah, that's complete bullshit. But, breaking it down and seeing that all of the different things, it really, gives me pause as to, is anything real in this world that they tell us?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is because when you see things lies that big, you begin to be like, oh, okay. Is there even an America?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like, you
is
got me. You got me good.
You got me. This is like he goes like, all right, right. Canada and Japan are the same, duh, or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, something complete. When you see lies of that scale, you begin to go, oh man, okay. Which is why people are afraid to go there. I think a lot of people have an inkling that something about the moon landing doesn't make sense because we never go back. No one ever goes back. It just seems sort of off. The clips they give you they don't look very good. You know, they look like they could have been filmed on a set at least. And so
Yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
people are sort of receptive to the idea when you bring it up, but then they shut down pretty quickly because if you go there, that is like taking a red pill, like the red pill, and then you're like, oh man, okay, now you're up out of the matrix, and that's very scary because you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to. The alternative is you wake up, like if you take the pill, you wake up naked in a big pile of goo. That's
Yeah.
not nice.
I'm afraid that one day that something like that might happen. So sometimes I'm like, all right, I need to make sure that I'm being human. You know, I want to
Yeah.
experience what's going on, because if I do wake up in a vat one day with wires all over me, you know, it's going to be kind of freaky.
It's gonna be kind of free. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder if even the red pill, blue pill choice is a trick. Like maybe the
Yeah.
correct answer is like when someone offers you that is like, I don't take pills from random black guys in
You
trench
just
coats.
say, fuck off. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
stop trying to give me pills, crazy dude. But yeah, the
Whose
moon
hand is
landing has a
this?
lot of problems.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
and I think people get lost in the weeds on the technical specifics. Because what they'll do is people get in there and they're like, but what about the weight and the mass and the bit? It's like, you don't even have to go there. You don't have to go there. Just, first of all, it's 250,000 miles away. Just
mhm.
think about that distance. We have trouble going up 10 miles. Like, that's a
Yeah.
problem. Like, the International Space Station is like, I don't know, like what, 300 miles up or something?
Something like
It's
that.
like, it's like a fraction. Okay. And not only did they nail it first try and the 6 subsequent tries, actually 5, were there 6? There's probably 6, I think, 6 landings.
Yeah, there were 6. Yeah, and the one blew up, the Challenger.
Right, the 13, because the numerology is there. One, you had to make it a 6
Mm-hmm.
because there were 7 missions, but you can't complete the 7th because it's a Satanism thing. Right? You can't go to the 7th, so you have to have 6. And the one that stops is 13, the unlucky number.
Right.
That's the one that doesn't go. Right. So so it's 250,000 miles away, and you just have to get that in your head. Like, that's really far. They nail it the first try and the other 5 times. And the one time they don't, somehow no one dies because they dig into it and everyone becomes MacGyver on this ship that has lost power. And they somehow re-steer it back to Earth. And it's completely insane. Right. You would just, if that happened, you would just be dead. There's very little chance you would be able to re-navigate back home.
Wait, so they say that nobody died in the Challenger? I thought they claimed that everyone
on
died.
the Apollo missions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Apollo missions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And then not only did they go 250,000 miles away, but they took a car with them and they drove around in a little golf cart.
Yep.
And
Yeah, they barely have room for themselves.
they barely have room for themselves. They have a car, and they FaceTimed the president from the moon in 1969 when they could barely get TV across town. Like, look at a TV station in 1969. It's this huge warehouse with these big antenna broadcasting over the thing, right? And then they broadcast live video, is the story, from the moon with a van-sized object that looks like a meth head's tree fort covered in foil.
Yep.
Right. And they got it here. And then they phoned the president from the moon. It's It's crazy. And they didn't even, and then the live feed, they didn't even let the news reports like tap into the feed to show the public. The cameras, because they couldn't, because it was pre-recorded, the cameras of the news agencies were at NASA, pointed at a projector screen that they then said was the live feed. So there was a recording of a projector, right? So you've got that. Just think about the impossibilities of this supposed technical feat. What nailed it for me was when I was going through and I was like, yeah, that's pretty crazy, but maybe, maybe people were just a little bit smarter back then or something. Maybe, I don't know. But then when they got back, Neil and Buzz and the other guy, no one remembers his name because he's Glenn Collins, maybe.
Michael Collins, I think.
Michael Collins. Yeah, Michael Collins. No one cares about him. And also, no one cares about any of the other supposed astronauts landed on the moon. You ever notice? It's weird.
Yeah, never heard of them.
You don't know who they are. You think they would be.
He's right.
When
When
you
he
landed
says,
on the moon, that should be like I don't know. It should be like a trump card at a dinner party.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
like, I'm a
something.
doctor. I went to the moon. But that doesn't count. It doesn't
Right.
mean anything. But anyway, so Neil and Buzz and Michael Collins are in the post-landing interview. They've got out of their jumpsuits from the ocean pod. They're back on land and they're giving an interview in their suits to the press. And one of the guys says, he has this very like radio Atlantic voice, like Atlantic, like that's the thing, old-time radio voice.
Right.
And he says, excuse me, Mr. Armstrong, did you notice any, could you tell us about the stars that you saw there? Was there good stargazing on the moon? And Neil Armstrong, I kid you not, you can find this on YouTube if you want to yourself to confirm. He says, the sky on the moon is deep black, and you cannot see any stars, as is the sky in the space between the Earth and the moon. And then Buzz Aldrin nods and confirms, and Michael Collins looks at him and goes, I don't recall seeing any stars. So the official position of the Apollo astronauts was you cannot see stars in space, which is retarded.
Yes, it is.
That's the dumbest thing. Like, oh, you can't see stars in space.
Because there's no
where you go to
atmosphere.
not see stars. If you like the idea that you can't see stars, and they fooled everyone for decades with this, because all the photos of the moon have no stars in them, and people are like, shouldn't there be stars? I'm like, nah, you don't know science. You don't know science, man. On the moon, you can't see any stars because reasons. And you could almost sort of buy that if it was film, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know, exposures. Like, oh, if you take your camera and point it up at the night sky, you don't see many stars, do you? You just get black, me. First of all, but there's no atmosphere that you're shooting through on the moon. But anyway, but then he says visually you cannot see stars. Now, and then he doesn't give you any out either, because then people would say like, oh, but it's because they had that visor with like the gold plate to protect them from the intense sunshine on their eyes, and that's why they couldn't see stars. But he says on the way to the moon and back, looking out the porthole, no stars. That's impossible. That's a lie. Neil Armstrong is a liar. And then you can compare that to people on the International Space Station right now who will talk about, oh yeah, I see the stars and it's great. And it's like, well, which is it?
Right.
Can you see them or not?
It doesn't make sense that you right. It doesn't make sense that you couldn't see it because they're their own light source. So why couldn't you see the light?
Exactly. Of course you could see the star. And the reason they had to do that, the reason they didn't put any stars on the set, because that's the one giveaway. If you got that even slightly wrong, like if you had a star background on your photos,
Right.
the cosmos doesn't change.
Right.
And you would be able to know the date and time they went. And a clever amateur astronomer could say, hey, if this was true, that star should be in a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
Or slightly like the distance, like it would be so hard to pull off correctly. They just said, make him an excuse.
Yeah.
Don't tell him which stars you saw, definitely, Neil, because if you do, and you say the wrong one, they'll say, oh, that's actually not visible at this time. You say, smoke screen,
Right.
or whatever, and then he disappears, which is what he did. Neil Armstrong just vanished from public life because he couldn't handle the weight of being a liar to the whole country
Yeah.
till he
And
died.
just so everybody knows, because my last name is Armstrong, I don't think that I have any relation. I've never met the guy if I do have any relation.
No, you're related to Lance Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
the
He's
other
my
one.
uncle.
Is
Yeah.
that supposed to be better?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
he just cheated in the way everyone else cheated.
Yeah, that's true. And he only had one nut, so,
Yeah.
he needed
I
help.
mean, like everyone, just as an aside, if you haven't figured out now that all professional athletes are on some kind of enhancer,
Yeah.
I mean, all of them,
Yeah.
The
Multiple enhancers.
NFL would not be possible without steroids. I mean, those guys take so much punishment on their bodies that just to get back up the next week, they
Mhm.
need extreme amounts of drugs.
Right.
It's a problem. But yeah. And then people go, but why would they lie? It's always the question. Why would they make it up? Just to, because we just spent millions and millions of dollars in 1960s money researching this thing, and they couldn't let it be a total failure. And also because they wanted to win the Cold War and convince the Russians they had technical superiority, even though they didn't. And the Russians, of course, knew it was fake also. It's just a propaganda war. The
Mhm.
Russians were also faking their space stuff.
Mhm.
It's not just the moon. It's
Yeah.
like like Sputnik. Take Sputnik, for example. What's the story of Sputnik? Like, it was this first satellite and it went up and people could see it going over America and it was so scary. It's blinking and then you think, but go look at how big Sputnik was and the power source on Sputnik. It first of all, you can hold it in your hands.
Oh, wow.
It's not a very big thing.
How could you see
Right.
it in the sky then?
Right. Like, let me see here. How big was Sputnik? I want to get exact. Was Sputnik. Yeah. And the other thing, yeah, Sputnik 1 was a 58 centimeter diameter aluminum sphere.
Wow.
58 centimeters.
Tiny.
It's aluminum sphere that carried 4 whip-like antennas, 2.5 to 3 meters long. So it was a nothing. Okay. Now imagine that you are on Earth and something in low Earth orbit is 58 centimeters large. Can you see it?
No.
You can't see that a mile away. There's no, and it had like it's basically powered by something like smaller than a 9-volt battery. And people are like, oh, but it had a bright light on it. Like, you cannot power a light like that on the stated power. Like, there's no way people were seeing Sputnik in the sky and being afraid. That's totally impossible.
Right.
But the narratives are just there to, well, as we said on the recent show, I think the narratives exist to sort of like milk people for louche.
Yeah.
Their negative emotions.
Well, and I think that they used to teach the firmament for many years before World War II and shortly thereafter, and then they started getting rid of it. And they probably ran into the firmament and they're like, oh shit, what are we going to tell everybody, that we're in a firmament?
So we hit the firmament. Yeah. So you can ask like why. You can come up with a million motives for why they would lie.
Mhm.
Like, that are all perfectly plausible. Like world control. People in your neighborhood lie to their homeowners association for like $50. People will lie. If you think people don't lie for global like regime change reasons, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, people lie over everything, and there's so many things in there, and it's so funny. And I have this YouTube video queued up here, and it's Buzz Aldrin being interviewed by the little girl. So I want to play this real quick.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's golden.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Can you hear it?
No.
I can't hear it, but it's fine.
Oh.
I have it by memory.
That's not coming through. I don't know why it's not coming through. It should.
I know the clip. I know the clip by heart.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, but it's so funny when he's like, we went there, but we didn't.
But we didn't go there, and
Right.
and that's how it happened. Is because this little girl says to him, "Why haven't we been back to the moon?" And he goes, "That's not an 8-year-old's question. It's my question. I think the answer is because we didn't go there.
Bluetooth connected.
That's the way it happened. You know, it's."
Yep.
And then
Okay, here it is. Here it
yeah,
is.
go for
Sorry, I got it.
Long time.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past. We wanted to keep it going.
Yeah. Now people will say to that, they'll say, "Oh, well, he meant what didn't happen was the return."
Right.
Right. And I say, okay, plausible, except like when he also did a more damning clip, in my opinion, with Conan O'Brien. Have you seen that one?
Yeah. That's so funny.
He's talking with Conan O'Brien, and Conan's like, "We all saw you get out on the moon." And he stops him dead and says, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You saw an animation. And you heard my voice talking." And Conan's sort of has a
Dumbfounded.
reboot moment, like NPC program goes, and he goes, "Oh, well, I mean, I heard you on the radio." And it's like see, that's how it works. He rewrote his own reality and his own memory in real time to preserve the false narrative, because leaving it is too painful. You know, and that is that's true and very scary. I think we all do that to some degree. I mean, I think the goal of people like you and me and people listening is to try and do that less. But I
Right.
imagine there are things that we believe simply because and then we have a tiny inkling they're not true, but we haven't looked into it because leaving it would be too painful.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of if we like really got serious about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's because what are the implications if we didn't go to the moon? You know, is everything thereafter a lie? And that's how a lot of people look at it, especially boomers, people that were alive during the time. They're like, well, what does that mean for, you know, everything else? And
Yeah.
it means it's all a lie, and we've been misled, and it's the hardest pill to swallow.
Yeah, and then it gets even harder because he says, "Well, who misled us and why?" And then you can try to come up with reasons or ways that it could just be purely human. I don't think any of those wash, and you have to resort to some sort of evil supernatural entities of some kind.
Right.
And so it opens up this huge door of like, oh, right, firmament and demons are real.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's hard to go work at your corporate job in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard to order from Wendy's at that point in your life. You integrate that. You know, It's like, "Are you a demon?" Sir, we just sell Frosties.
Well,
you get that bad sometimes.
You're so right. And I think it was your episode 33. You were talking about the fallen angels, and I had a big roundtable discussion last night about fallen angels, Nephilim, demons, you know, all this type of stuff came in. And all of my research that I've been doing, all of my spiritual work that I've been doing, you know, I meditate every day. I work with people. I do energy type of work, but not Reiki. You know, I don't do the hand symbols, but I can help heal someone that way as well, just like by thinking it. It kind of just works that way. And
that's what placebo is.
Yeah.
Placebo is
right.
Mind over matter.
Self-guided faith healing.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So when I'm studying all this stuff, I'm like, oh shit, the Bible is real. Angels and demons are
I know,
real.
it's very scary.
It is, because it's so simple.
Just think about that. If the Bible is legit, it's very terrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
it's comforting too, but it's like, oh man, there's like demons and dragons and
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought
Like,
you got
there
me
was a
with the
world-
moon landing.
there was a
Yeah.
world flood and like everyone died and there were it's like very you suddenly go from like Normieville to like living in the Lord of the Rings,
Right.
you know.
That's how I think it kind of was for a while. And maybe
Yeah.
like the 1200s, it might have been like that.
Yeah, I mean for sure. And there are remnants of that you still find, like there are the ghosts running around of these things
Right.
that still haunt certain places. But yeah. So the people don't look at it because it opens doors that they're not prepared to go through. And I really can't blame them. You know, it's like you have to be of a certain mindset, and you also have to be willing to like throw your life in a dumpster and light it on fire every 5 years
Yeah.
to really go, because you're like, you know what, I'm gonna now take on a set of beliefs that make me incompatible to be around most of my current friend group. You know,
Yeah.
and that's very upsetting.
Especially when you start to get into the mindset of, I just want truth around me, and anything that doesn't coincide with my truth, you just start to unconsciously, you're pushing people away from you. And
Yeah.
I moved 750 miles from Pennsylvania to Georgia during a pandemic last year because of the craziness that was going on. And I was like, I can't be around these people. I need to go to freedom. I need to
Oh,
be.
man, I totally get that. I totally get, like, because you can't, like the corporate world is completely fake.
Yeah.
It's like what they do, and then and most of the people know their jobs don't exist. Like they're there and they push buttons, but like they know that if they didn't, nothing bad would happen. You know,
Mhm.
that's true for like most of the American workforce. And that causes a lot of cognitive dissonance for people, because the lie is that capitalism is supposed to be efficient, and it
Mhm.
wouldn't have meaningless jobs, right? But when you actually look at it, what you're doing is you are accepting enslavement in exchange for money, which
Yeah.
is and people don't. It's like that's an upsetting truth to think about.
Yeah,
I'd
it is.
rather just watch the football game.
Yeah, they don't want to think about. Have you ever seen the show Lost?
Yeah, it's been a while.
When they have to push the button and they're like, why do you push the button? I don't know. We're supposed to push the button. It'll explode if it doesn't. And then they don't push the button and nothing happens. And then
Yeah.
they're like, I've been wasting my life pushing this button. It's like, yeah, that's the corporate world.
Yeah, 100%. That's the corporate world, and that's also recently in Squid Game. You seen that?
I keep hearing about watching Squid Game, and I chose to watch 3% first, which is also very interesting.
I have not heard of
Nice.
Squid Game.
Mhm.
So,
Like a
so
video
Squid
game.
Game is it's a Netflix show that's like a Korean Hunger Games on steroids.
Yeah.
So it's like
Mhm.
it's like the poor people are made to do games where the
Same thing.
prize is untold wealth, and the losers get killed. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth. There's a lot of truth in that too, of how the world works, because it's these very simple games. Like the first game they play is red light, green light, and there's like a robot saying red light, green light, but like in Korean, right? And then if you move a little bit after it says red light, it goes, and you just get mowed down, right? And so the people in the game, first of all, there's a truth drop because they all are there and they didn't really know what they signed on for. It's sort of presented as they were like, oh, there's a chance to win some money, and they click. It's like, here's the user agreement, and they click OK without reading it.
Of course.
And then they're like, oh man, what did we sign up for? But so the people that get through red light, green light, which isn't a huge percentage, they get taken back to the camp for the next game the next day. And there's one guy who actually did read the terms and conditions. And he says, well, you guys know, like everyone's freaking out. If like 2/3 of us vote to leave, they stop the game. They're like, really? And like the guards are like, yeah. If you guys vote to stop, you can go home. And you think, oh, we're saved, And then just before they hold the vote, the guy points up at the ceiling or something, and there's just this machine just dropping money, just dropping the money, and they do eventually vote to leave, but it's close. And then they go and it shows them in their lives, and they're all poor, and then they come to the realization like, oh, I'm in a slow hell. I may as well go through a fast hell. Why waste time, right? And so that's how a lot of people perceive their lives is like, well, first of all, if I don't adhere to arbitrary rules, I will be slaughtered. Right. And then 2, like I have to do this because it's the only, like I technically I have my freedom to leave, but the other option is worse. Right. Which is like what they're doing a lot with the, it's how they're trying to portray the vaccine mandates. Like, well, you can choose, but consequences.
Right.
And you can't like, and I think for most people that the consequences wouldn't be as bad as they imagine in their head.
Right.
And if you do choose
'cause you
to
can
take
get
it,
another
we'll
job.
give you $500 or we'll give you a gift card or free donuts
Yeah, exactly.
or whatever,
We'll give you $100.
whatever you want.
It's about health. Here, come get your free donuts.
Yeah, a dozen free.
Yeah. And so the truth there is that like people enslave themselves through fear.
Right.
Yeah.
They believe these lies because they're afraid. And which is why in the Bible, the number 1 command is be not afraid. It says that over and over again. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Be not afraid. Fear is a sin. Don't do it. Because that's how the demons control you. And it's how the Matrix holds on to you.
Yeah, that's exactly
Like I think if
right.
you really had no fear at all, and faith is the opposite of fear, you probably could do what Jesus was talking about and be like, mountain, get out of the way, and it just flow into I haven't reached that level yet.
I was talking about that. Yeah, I haven't reached that level. I was talking about that earlier with somebody. And, I was thinking that maybe the whole thing of walking on hot coals, it's that you absolutely trust that it's not going to burn. So then therefore it doesn't burn. You have no fear at all. And it's not going to burn you.
Yes. I think that's, and people can do this. Like your beliefs definitely affect the way you experience the world and like what happens. But I just think a lot of us are self-included are still so held down by these fears.
Right. And language has a big part of it. The way that we think is in terms of language. When I started learning Spanish and now I'm learning Greek, when I started expanding, it was like, oh, I'm seeing the world in all these new ways. And it's just from learning new languages. It's as simple as that.
Oh, yeah. Like Charlemagne said, having a second language is like having a second soul.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Because your language dictates. I mean, even like in English, we have this structure of like noun verb. Like verbs have to have nouns.
Right.
You can't just be a verb. Right. Like something has to be doing the verb. But then you think, but is that necessary? Like, what if there's just like you have a cat, right? Mm-hmm. But could you have a catting? Like there's particles doing a cat, right? Or energy doing a cat right there. So it's like really when you think about it, it's like, well, the universe is manifesting a cat here. So it's like there's a cat on the mat or there's a catting with the matting. It's like
it's quantum physics.
I can't think.
There's no reason that English you couldn't have a language that was just verbs, really. And think about how that would change
it would be more accurate.
Yeah, or I don't know, or maybe it's just one pole of a magnet, and you can look at it that way, or you could look at everything as nouns, and you could do that.
Everything just is.
Everything just is. So there's like two poles. There's like actions and things, but maybe and you could be at either extreme, and the point you are on is determined by your linguistic set that's been given to you. Yeah.
Well, I like what you're saying with the verbs because that's what quantum physics. It's not, it's always rendering until you observe it. It's always moving. So catting, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a catting on the matting, it's and so you could totally view the world that way if you wanted to. Or
Right.
like a fly, if flies had language, would they have a distinction between ceiling and floor and wall? Probably not, because they can stand on all of them.
Right.
So they can all be used for the same
gravity has no
purpose.
effect.
Yeah. So because your language is determined by the practical effects that things have and the way you can use them.
Right.
So if you were a different species, like you can imagine an alien species, if such exists, may look at the same world, but classify everything in a totally different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like when we see a room, we see a cube. You have walls, ceilings, floor, whatever. It's a cube, but a fly has so many different eyes. It's probably like a tetrahedron or some kind of something with many more faces to it than what we're seeing.
For sure. When you start thinking about like your reality is your language and also your tools of perception. And that's like scientific tools like microscopes and telescopes. I don't know if they expanded or not. It's a bit. One of my bugbears is I wonder why there is a prejudice to believe things seen by the eye augmented, but not by the naked eye. So like if you look through a camera and take a picture of a ghost and it shows up on the film, then that is somehow more believable than someone saying I just saw it. But
Right.
really you're looking through a viewfinder, right? Or if you see something through a telescope, that's somehow more authoritative than just seeing it with your eye.
Right.
And I wonder what that prejudice, it's like we don't believe the naked eye. There's something about like the fetishization of tool usage there, because like
We don't
you're really
believe
just like,
ourselves.
why is it count if I look through a lens, what you see with your eyes is not valid. What you see with your eyes through a lens is valid. But it's like I'm still seeing it with my eyes. I wonder if that is also a perception prejudice.
Well, I think it's probably because we don't trust ourselves and we have to show someone else and have them confirm what we're saying. If I take the picture and see the ghost, I then can show it to my girlfriend and she can say, oh, I see it too. But if I say I'm seeing a ghost and she's like, where? And it's like, am I seeing this or am I crazy? Because we have that fear of being labeled as crazy, which underlies everything.
I've been labeled as crazy multiple times.
Yeah, me too.
It's not a fear without justification because people treat you differently.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily badly, but
they're afraid of you.
They're afraid of you. They don't invite you to as many dinner parties.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you become known as the guy that's going to start talking about MK Ultra, you don't want to be that guy.
Right.
But then on my side, if you start being known as the guy that's like, that money is a vampiric spiritual loose harvesting technology. And people are like, we just are trying to eat Chick-fil-A. Leave us alone.
Right.
But it can be a self-isolating journey because you can only really talk about these things with other people on the same path, and they're few and far between.
Right. Well, and that also gets you to trust yourself, that when you see something, you don't need someone else to tell you they seen it. You're like, oh, well, I seen it. I don't really care what you say. I was just trying to help you, that I saw something crazy.
Yeah. We have, I guess the prejudice is toward democracy. Like if we all vote that we saw it, then if more of us vote than not, then it was true. But that is also a question of validity.
Majority rules.
Yeah, I don't know if that's valid, but but maybe.
Yeah.
In which case, though, then like I think that would give like geocentrism more weight, because the Earth and the Moon are 2 and the Sun is 1, so we get more votes. So we're the center.
Well, I think that we are the center. I actually you'll really like my episode number 52 with Ryan Zem. He's
Okay.
a self-taught physicist,
Uh-huh.
and he talks about how he's not sure if the earth is round or flat, but there's this thing called atmospheric refraction in
Yeah.
which the light automatically bends that we're looking at. So when something's far enough away, it will automatically curve. And if you go far enough away, it will then become a circle because of the refraction of light. And he really breaks it down. You'll really enjoy that episode if you give that a try.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
talks about 3 different kinds of refraction: astronomical and terrestrial. And then the one that's never mentioned is
He-
horizontal
he gave
refraction,
the
which
name.
is being able to look from the sky down instead of from earth to the sky.
Right. And he sent this to physicists in Brazil
Blew
and
their
Germany. And he said that the one guy became a flat earther because he was like, oh my God, you just made me realize that looking down at the earth, it would make it round just by looking. So the physicist became a flat earther based on his hypothesis of what he labeled horizontal refraction.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I don't take a firm stance on the shape of the earth. I just call it
Yeah, me
it's the
neither.
earth. It's the earth realm. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
The
I don't-
presentation he did, you need to watch it. You should see
Yeah,
it.
I will.
You might,
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's some kind of rounded dome and that there's a land that's somewhere in the middle of it. You know, that's my best take on
Yeah.
it.
But see, even that, you realize how difficult it is to talk to
Right.
people at a you know, at a potluck, because
Yeah.
you're the guy that's like, I don't take a firm stance on the shape of the earth.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's what that
I
either
think-
makes the conversation go or it stops it dead with a lot of awkward questions.
Like, I think we live on a catting. Can you pass the gravy?
we live on a turtling on a turtling on a turtling
Right.
all the way
Um,
downing.
Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the idea of the post-rapture world, and that kind of mixed in with the idea of the Nephilim that you brought with the clowns. I never heard that before, but that made me like, oh yeah, Nephilim, clowns, same thing.
Yeah.
And the possibility of the post-rapture world. So do you think we're in a post-rapture world? Because honestly, I kind of really do think that we are, and that ever since like maybe the 1800s, that Satan has been on the earth and confusing the shit out of everybody and everything. And that's why that you can, whatever you look for in this world, you'll find, because everything is out there. You know, that's how Satan
Yeah,
confused
their
it all by
desires
putting
are out there.
everything out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not. I don't know. It's such a complicated topic. It's like
Yeah.
there's the Tartaria stuff and the mud flood stuff definitely has some points, and you're like,
Yeah.
maybe.
The
But then
orphan
you're like,
trains.
Yeah, but then you're like, but you know, is that just a step too far for me? I sometimes wonder if I really am skeptical about things, or if I'm just worried about going a step too far and like totally being like, then you just, at some point, you just have to be a hermit in a cave.
Yeah.
All your wires cross and they like overheat, and you're like,
Yeah.
I know too much.
Yeah, it was like this, there was this one fellow in Arizona, I think, and he like dropped out of society for a while, and he didn't really he was, because he was thinking about this stuff and then this kind of stuff, and then he he didn't realize he'd lost the plot until he found himself in the middle of the desert at night during a local military base training exercise, throwing flares at a tank that he'd gotten. And like the military was like, who's that? There's someone here. They're just like throwing. And then he got back to his cave. He's like, what am I doing? Why did I do that? Where am I? And then he sort of like tried to reintegrate into society. But I think we all have to have that moment where we become a crazy guy throwing flares. And then you either get lost there forever, which is not ideal, or
Right.
you come back like Gandalf the White. You have to be killed you have to go down with the Balrog.
Yeah.
and you hope you come back. You know.
Yeah, with the Tartaria stuff, I think it is it is a lot, but I think it's so tangible, especially when you mix in the orphan trains and the world fairs, and that they were setting up the ideas in people's minds of, oh, these people did this because they paid certain people to act like they were savages, and then they told those people, we'll keep supplying food for you if you keep acting this way, and tell all your people to keep acting this way, and then like the next generation just thought that's how they acted, and then that's how everyone is like just pretending, but they don't know, not that they are pretending, that that's how it started, was some kind of pretend thing.
Yeah. What gets me about the Tartaria stuff is just the ancient architecture can be so incredible.
Mhm.
And you think they had to have something, I don't know, like some sort of technology, something, because it's just, you imagine doing this by hand and you're like, how could that happen?
Right.
How could that happen? Like, I mean, the pyramids is an obvious one, but then just like these ancient cathedrals and stuff, you're like, people can't do that now, Or
Yeah.
maybe you could, but you'd be using a computer and like a laser leveler and So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept, and I like it because it's a giant, huge conspiracy, which is always something I'm interested in. Or
Yeah.
like it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna rewrite the entire history of Earth. Like, okay,
Right.
let's hear what you have to say.
Well,
Thank
here's something that kind of made it more plausible for me to listen to, because I come across a long time ago about the all the trees, I mean all the mesas are cut down trees, and it's interesting. I don't know exactly what it is, but then I let that sit in the background for a while, and yesterday I've come across this YouTube channel, and this guy is showing that a teddy bear had a waterfall and minerals dripping on it, and within a few years it became solid stone, and then there
Mm.
was someone's hat became, in 50 years, became solid stone. And then I had the thought, well, what if all of these megalithic structures were all wood, and somehow minerals were m- dripped onto it for a certain amount of time and made it become stone, and now it's completely solid, and that's why it lasts forever, and so on and so forth, because it's actually wood that's protected by the minerals of the earth. So there's no way, I mean, not no way, but it's going to last very long, and you'd be able to move very large things very easily.
Yeah, that's definitely like you move something light into place and then turn it into stone,
Right.
which could be where the Medusa myth comes from.
Oh, yeah,
If-
yeah, and that video, it did include her. It had it, it showed her real quick. It was like, "Did you ever hear of someone turning it into stone?" I think the YouTube channel is autodidactic,
Mm, mm.
something to that effect.
Yeah, this is a tip. If you get your conspiracy theories crazy enough, you're still allowed on YouTube, because
Right.
it's people like they're not threatened by like people that believe in ancient Medusa.
Exactly.
But if you're talking about like COVID or the World Economic Forum, they're going to boot you off. But so just the solution is just to go further
Right.
down the primrose path.
Right, but we got to stay grounded, so we're not throwing
Yeah, you need
flares at
you need a
tanks.
grounding mechanism. Like
Well, and I think,
Inception. You need like a little totem.
yeah, and I think that's where, like, me still having a job, I'm a truck driver, me still having the job is kind of like, that's because last year I got laid off, and then I wasn't working, and I was super high vibrational, I was loving life, and it was just the best thing ever, but I was so disconnected from humanity. It's like I couldn't communicate with anyone. So then I had to get this job, and then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now I can talk to people about these things.
Yeah, this is why people were always mad at Jesus,
Yeah.
because he's such a high vibrational. Like, and they'd be like, why aren't you upset that we're in a storm? And he's like, what's your problem? Chill out. Just tell a storm to be quiet if it
Yeah,
bothers you.
yeah,
You don't
just
even need a
relax.
boat. You just walk on the water. And they're like, wow. Because what they really want is for you to validate their worry and for
Mhm.
you to be like, they hate it. People hate it when you are not anxious about the same things they are and worried about the same things. If you're like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's the worst. The people hate that if it's something they really care about,
Mhm.
because that I don't know. People really want to be. They really don't want to let go of their fears because their fears give them a sense of self-identity. And like, I'm the person fighting against this or fighting to keep that away. And you feel like, oh, that's not even a real thing. People
Right.
get really,
Well, that's what I tell people all the time. Like, we create our fears so that we can overcome our fears and be like, yeah, look how great we are. I overcame my fear of heights by going on the roof and hanging Christmas lights. Like, I actually did that, but it's
yeah,
like it's only a fear because I made it that. I don't know why it was a fear of mine or is still, but we do these things so that we can pat ourselves on the back when we overcome them, or we can
mm,
keep it as a limit, as a barrier, so we don't go past that.
yeah, yeah. And I don't just bash that thing. I mean, you may need limits and barriers to keep
Yeah,
you. A river needs banks.
yeah, that's
Otherwise, it
true.
just becomes a giant puddle.
Yeah.
Doesn't flow anywhere.
So your thing with the Nephilim, that was very interesting with being clowns. That is so red hair, white faces, large shoes, wearing stilts to make you giant size. Everybody's afraid of that. And when you smoke DMT, you see jesters,
Yeah,
that are creating this reality. That was like when you were talking about that, that really just like floored me. It's like, oh my God, Ronald McDonald's a Nephilim.
yeah. Well, the demonic energy is jesterish
Yeah.
because it's always mocking. It doesn't take anything seriously, and it always tries to make everything seem stupid. Which
Hmm.
some stuff is stupid, but it's like the person. The demonic energy is like, man, it's just so good. Man, what are you doing that for? I mean, that's all demons are, but they're very effective.
Hmm.
Is because they try to get you to view things as worthless, meaningless, pointless. They're always poking at it, being like, you didn't accomplish anything. It's worthless. That's the demonic energy.
Right.
And so they do like to make fun of things. I mean, like Alan Watts once said, you can describe anything in a way that makes it sound great, or in a way that makes it sound stupid. Like playing the violin is just scraping cat hair over horse intestines, or horse hair over cat intestines. It's like, it sounds gross.
Right.
And that's what the demons do. Like, you just got some horse hair and you're scraping it over cat intestine. Or you can view it as like, oh, you're doing something transcendent. You're playing Beethoven on the violin.
Right. You're making beautiful music for everybody to love and listen to.
Yeah, it's all about, they want you. The demonic energy is to put down and to denigrate, which is what comedy's very good at, and sometimes that's necessary.
Right.
But but that's all they can do.
Right. And I think they're like the kind of, like the DMT elves, they call them the machine elves. Like, that's kind of like the picture that I get, that maybe they were somehow these demons or Nephilim or whatever, and they're creating our reality. And it's so funny when you have someone with all the names that come out in all these different events. Like, you guys always talk about Waynel Sexton,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
like these names, like, where does it come from? And if they're making up uh funny things, because they're making a joke out of it, uh they would make funny names for these horrible situations.
yeah. Well, it's who's the Hindu god of destruction? Shiva.
Shiva, yeah.
Yeah. So Shiva's always depicted as many arms, and
Hmm.
he's got like an axe and then like a spear, and like, I guess the modern would have like a gun and like disease. All the arms have something to kill you with, but there's always one arm just at the bottom that is holding up the peace sign, and it's a way of being like, don't worry, it's all part of the show.
Hmm.
It's like, but just shh, it's okay. It's all it has to have. But it's sort of just I think that's the purpose of putting the comedic effect in there. Like, they were trying to get us to think that people were assaulting Jews at one point in New York,
Right.
and they had a headline that said, the Jewish Diamond District set on fire by a man named Israel Burns, which is what his
Yeah.
name was. And it was like that was his first and last name was Israel Burns, this black guy photo. It's like, okay. But see, and when you see the joke, you're like, right. So it's a
Right.
dual purpose. They are mocking, but they mock, but they also get a rise out of when people see it. Like,
Right.
you know.
Like Biden saying, well, the bigger picture is we went from 59% vaccinated to 99% vaccinated when everybody got fired. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that would happen if you fired everyone that's not vaccinated, obviously, you know.
Yeah, they are funny. I mean, that's the thing. You know,
Yeah,
they are it is humorous. You know, it's like Funny Bot on South Park. You see that?
no, but I heard you guys talking about it.
Yeah. Funny Bot on South Park. He was made by the Germans to prove that they were actually funny. And he comes up with the greatest ironic joke, which is that he's going to kill the whole world, and then when they're all dead, he goes awkward.
Yeah,
It's like that.
yeah, it is like that.
That's how the demon. That's the demon energy. That's what they're doing.
Hey, maybe the Germans did create something, you know, that did that or does that.
Yeah, I don't know that Germans have the creativity for that though. Maybe they do. And this is not an anti-German rant. I'm part German.
Me
I'm
as
just-
well.
I just, you know, I've been to Germany.
Have
I
ya?
can't. I could imagine them making a robot, but not. It wouldn't have a sense of irony.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just meant that the
It would
Germans
need to be made
created.
by an Italian or an Irish person.
I just meant that the Germans would create something that a machine that would destroy the world.
Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna do that. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, if maybe that's Google. Maybe Americans did that.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
see.
do you know the correlation between people that have German in their ancestry and the correlation between abduction phenomena?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah. There's
pretty
a bunch of
weird.
these are a bunch of these genetic correlations to paranormal events. One of my favorites is Rh positive.
Right.
Rh positive blood has a lot more paranormal susceptibility. Of course, people in America love to claim everything is Native American. Like if there's a ghost around, like, oh, it's near a Native American burial ground. It's like,
Right.
is it though? How many of these are there? You know, it's like they can't all be near Native American burial grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not in the
So,
way that they
yeah.
tell us the natives lived.
yeah, yeah. If they are even there,
Right.
if the Choctaw even exist, did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I get to when I'm like, you know, I don't even know what happened. You know, I can't verify that the world existed before I was born. You know, how am I supposed to say what happened hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
It's
that's
true.
I mean, it's when we get to that point, it's like, well, I got to believe something, you know, like there's this everything's fake community and they have like websites where birdsaren'treal.com and it's like
yeah,
have you been to that website?
pigeons are liars.
It's so funny. It's such a parody, and I think that it actually is a parody, but some people buy into it as real because it's like saying these people that you never heard of, like A+ celebrities, and it's like who?
Yeah.
And it's just so funny that it has to be a parody. But when you get to that point, you're like, well, I gotta believe something because if you believe everything's fake, then you're at least believing the website that's telling you everything's fake. So you have some kind of belief.
Yeah,
So
you can't function without beliefs. Yeah.
right. So
Which
you
is
have
why,
to
which is why we started a worldview repair service to try and help people navigate these
Yeah.
issues. You know, get their foundations settled, maybe hoisted up with some floor jacks here and there. You know, I don't know what your specific one needs, but there's an episode. We have an episode for all of it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. You know, that's why I started my podcast. It started as a spiritual type of thing. Well, you know, the first 13 episodes I came in and I told all of my darkness of who I was and what I've been through, and it wasn't very good. But you know, I just put it out there, and then I started interviewing people because I was like, I want to help people. You know, I want to teach them that they don't have to stay stuck. And now it's like I'm in this place where I'm just like, I want to give you practical information, but also conspiracies that I find practical and relevant to what's
Mhm.
going on in the world. And it is like a repair service. Like, yeah, we go pick which chapter you need to listen to and go listen to it.
Yeah, you're building like a manual that's like,
Mhm.
is your sink leaky? You turn to page 50. Is your is your metaphysical philosophy off? Turn to page 83.
Right.
Have you chosen the wrong side of Kant's imperative? Turn to 107. And then that's just. I think that there's definitely a market for that kind of service. I think eventually one day we might even have to like do house calls.
Well,
Go
hey,
to people's house.
that's what like my energy work is kind of like that.
Oh,
Like
that's true. Yeah, you do that.
yeah, I call myself a therapeutic conversationalist.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
well,
great.
yeah, because it's healing by talking to people and finding out, all right, what is your problem, and I'll give you the best, to my ability, the best tools that I can give you so that you can heal yourself from it. You can change out the foundation.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that you and Smokestack might have energy, that type of energy work in your future.
Oh yeah, man. Hold on one second. My daughter's there. What is it? Okay. Well, can you take him? Can you take him? Can you take him? Just at the front door. All right, give me a second.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter's messing with the dog.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I should come see you. You're not far away.
Yeah. So where I don't know if you want to say it on the podcast on the recording, but yeah, so you're in the same general area as us, and I heard you say that it could be like some kind of rainforest type of atmosphere, the way that it rains here.
Yeah.
That really interests me because and I think that the Gulf of Mexico is some kind of man-made thing or disaster area, and it would kind of make sense if it was.
Yeah. 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 I have a lot of questions about the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
A lot of people do, really.
Yeah, it's
I mean, a lot of people. I mean, the mainstream thing is that it's where the meteor hit for the dinosaurs.
right.
But who knows about that? But there's something going on with the Gulf of Mexico for sure.
Well, the dinosaurs might have existed less than 10,000 years ago. Like I was saying, that guy Ryan Zem on his YouTube channel, he has on news articles, or maybe not articles, but clippings of different bones are found to have living sentiment in them, some kind of thing that some kind of living organisms that if it has to be younger than 10,000 years old. And that that really blew my mind because he was like, a lot of people think that dinosaurs aren't real, but then they have these bones that have living organisms in them, so that means that they were alive less than 10,000 years ago. So
Yeah, maybe that's where dragons come from.
yeah, that's definitely dinosaurs. Well, T-Rexes, I think, don't have those legs that they have. I think that they were serpent beings that so I've actually, in a psychedelic trip, I've seen the seven-headed, 10-horned beast, and it was a Chinese dragon. So first it roared at me, and I thought it was a lion roaring at me because it had the mane hanging
Right.
down, and then it closed its mouth, and I saw the little mustache, and I was like, "Oh, it's a Chinese dragon," and I was like, "Oh, it can't hurt me because I'm a physical
Because
person."
it's Chinese.
No, because I was a physical person.
Because you didn't know kung fu.
But
Yeah.
it had the little arm like a T-Rex, and it had the claws that were sharp as bears claws, exactly described in Revelation. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's a T-Rex. And like they were real. And then the more I looked into dinosaurs, like, oh, they just rebranded all of the large reptiles and the dragons that lived here. They just rebranded them dinosaurs. All the megafauna that died off in the ice age, that was dinosaurs, probably, what we call dinosaurs, but they're probably just really large reptiles.
Yeah. Yeah, and that connects with I'm not a huge David Icke person,
Me
but
neither.
it is weird that like the reptilians idea that like, and also like the serpent connected with Satan,
Hmm.
and like the demonic is all these there's this constant connection with the evil forces with a reptilianness,
Right.
like the beast, the dragon. Not sure what that's all about, but there's something to it. I don't
You
know if
know,
it's I don't know if it's all Chinese reptiles.
right.
It may be. This may be a thing we have to do to fix with China, but we'll see.
Well, and it goes to the seraphim, the
Yeah.
seraphs. So, they were allegedly the ones that were the snakes that misled Eve.
Right.
And
the
then you
seraph
got
and the
eels. Where do
seraph
eels come from?
yeah, the seraph and the serpent, that share similar root word.
Mhm.
It's one, snakes are just not very cool on their own. It's the rare person that's like, if you're like the guy that has a snake, that's even worse than being the guy that questions the shape of, doesn't have a hard stance on the earth.
Yeah, I
The party, like,
agree.
oh yeah, I have snakes.
Walking
You're like
around with a boa constrictor.
Yeah, you can change your whole life path just by becoming a snake guy.
Yeah.
Not for the better usually, but if you just get a snake and a tarantula and you become that, people will treat you differently
Yeah.
very, very rapidly.
Yeah. A lot of people stop coming around.
A lot of people's not going right. People just don't like snakes for good. Maybe for that reason, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, this was such a fun conversation. Mimi, do you have anything left that you wanted to say in your
No, I
notes?
think I'm good.
All right. Sumo, do you want to tell the audience where they can find all your stuff at?
yeah, you can look for our podcast anywhere fine podcasts are distributed, which is the Mystical American Patriot Society, because we are trying to help America find its spiritual roots. And you can look up if you want to get on the bonus content, we have the St. Nicholas Project on Gumroad. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Yoshi Matsumoto. Yoshi like the dinosaur in Mario. Matsumoto, Matsumoto. Sumo's in the middle there. So I go by Sumo. Actually, I chose that name as my pin name for the novels I write. And then later, people already call me Sumo because I used to do sumo wrestling tournaments. And then later I found it was in there. I was like, oh, I could just tell people that's why I chose the name, even though it was completely coincidental.
Yeah. Well,
And then you can see our website at mapsoc.org, mapsoc.org. Mystical American Patriot Society, society with SOC spelled out because maps was taken.
okay. Well,
Because-
I suggest anybody go check it out. I'm an avid listener, as I said. It's because you guys have a completely different take than any other conspiracy podcast, and you talk about very interesting and weird things. And I think that it helps to see things from a different perspective. And when you're just like a completely out there perspective, it really helps you expand and see things more clearly. And plus, it's hilarious. I mean, you and Smokestack going back and forth all day. It's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I tell people don't just believe it because we said it. In fact, it's probably a bad idea if we said just. I'm offering a different view, a perspective on your worldview foundation, giving you some suggestions that how we may go about this repair. But don't, I mean, if you wanted to be not normal in 3 years, just believe everything we say. I mean, don't go down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
man, thank you. This was nice. This was a good time.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and of course, I'll have all the your stuff linked in the description, and we will talk to you guys later.
All right, namaste.